Weekend recently did a video on Kingpin, and he asked a very impertinent question.
Would love to commission a study. When was the point weirdos on YouTube realized they could make money complaining about this sort of thing?
There is an answer, but the answer is less to do when that started happening and why it started happening. It was because progressives and the culture wars started to flare up. At one time, towards the beginning of the MCU phase 1, we had every single MCU character that had a movie was a different character than the person in the movie. Thor gave his actual first name, the name his mother called when he was in trouble as a child, to Jane Foster, in a very silly way of claiming he was no longer worthy of his name, but he started going by Odin's son, which would be his father's name, so he would be insulting his father rather than his own actual individual literal name. Amadeus Cho, who used nanotechnology to get Hulk like powers without having to go through the aspect that made the Hulk unique in the sense that he was a monster and a superhero and had difficulty controlling his anger issues, making him stand out as an individual. Where Amadeus Cho was another scientist that just gave himself powers. Riri Williams, who was a new character created to be the new Iron Man, who's a teenage girl that built a suit apparently comparable to Iron Man's in her garage. Now, Sam Williams got a little bit of credit because he was Captain America's friend, but at the time, literally all of the other characters that were in the Avengers that had their own movies were different characters than what were on the screen. Marvel claimed at the time that changing all these characters in the same moment was a organic process, not individuals coming in and just changing it. However, with a few exceptions, it felt like it was people who did not want to write the characters of Iron Man, Tony Stark, Thor, Thor. It felt like they wanted to get something from changing the character to fit some diversity checkbox. I am not arguing that in most cases that you can't change the character, especially in modern day. Again, I have videos on this subject where I've defended many of the race changes. But this did not feel organic, and in some cases, it felt like they were self indulgent virtue signals rather than artistic choices for the purposes of telling good Iron Man stories. Wonder Woman, Tim Drake, uh, Jonathan Kent being shot up into space while he had a successful comic book series and comes back down older so they can make him buy. The DC heroes, in a relatively short succession, seem to be trying to go for the LGBT crowd by changing several characters, making a gay Superman by Wonder Woman, by Tim Drake, and a few others, including but not limited to Harley Quinn getting into a relationship with Poison Ivy. It started to feel like, and yes, this is a exaggerating joke, the question wasn't who's going to come out of the closet next in DC, but who hasn't. And so it did not feel like this was a character being changed to tell a good story, but a pretentious, self indulgent desire to tell to make a previously established character their mouthpiece or to get another trophy on the wall. And that's why a lot of this started getting criticized because it was overdone and it felt like it was done for the wrong reason. That was just the superhero aspect. There's another aspect of it, of the divide between the fandom and the entertainers, which is why the criticism is happening of things like Star Wars. When Kathleen Kennedy said that the Force is female and Star Wars is for girls now, was sort of a slap in the face of the fandom. Now, she might not have meant it that way to steelman it. She might mean that they're trying to give more women voices in Star Wars. The fact that they want to focus on a woman instead of a man. There's plenty of ways that I can say, maybe. But what it also tended, but when people criticized this thought process, this statement, to many in the fandom, to some in the fandom community, like the guy standing before you right now, it was kind of a slap in the face because we liked Buffy. She was a major uh, pop culture icon. So was Xena Warrior Princess, Ripley from the Alien series. Uh, Red Sonja's less well known today, but characters like Red Sonja. We had powerful women in these type of shows. So why do we criticize this kind of thing? Because we're told by the entertainers that we're not going to be, that they're important or doing something special when they take a character that isn't a powerful woman and gender swap them and then think they're doing something important or they're entitled to it. And it feels like they're not about making a better version of whatever they're adapting, but it feels like they want it as a trophy on the wall. So I think I figured out a pattern in watching what tends to get the most criticism and what doesn't when it comes to gender and race swapping. The last one's going to sound the simplest but the hardest to pull off. First, you have to know what you're doing with it. In the case of an actor, if the actor's bigger than a role, you don't need to say it's about time to that we had a black equalizer. You just get Denzel Washington to do the damn job because Denzel Washington is bigger than the equalizer. The equalizer was a dead franchise. Samuel L. Jackson is bigger, was bigger than Nick Fury. Samuel L. Jackson is also beloved by the fans, which is number two. Try and get the fans on your side. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do an exact adaptation from the book, but don't go out of your way to antagonize them. Don't virtue signal them. Don't pretend that you're above the people you want to take their hard earned money to allow you to keep making movies. Respect them, honor them, go out of your way to show that you respect the fandom. In other words, try and get your customers to want to come back to give you money. And the third, and this is the most complex one in the sense that it's easier said than done, make it good, and all is forgiven.